The halls of the Galactic Empire were filled with order, precision, and discipline. For centuries, their fleets had crossed the stars, bringing system after system into the Empire's grasp. They knew how enemies reacted. Some resisted with courage, others with fear, but all eventually bent their knees. Yet this time was different. The strange newcomers, the humans, did not plead, did not surrender, and did not even grow angry. They laughed. Admiral Thalros could not forget the sound. It replayed in his mind as he stood on the command bridge of his flagship. The laughter was bright and strong, as if these aliens had found amusement in his threats. His jaw tightened every time he recalled it. To him, it was not humor. It was insult. "These creatures mock us," he said darkly, pacing before his officers. "They believe our empire is a joke. That cannot be allowed." The bridge crew exchanged uneasy looks. They too had heard the strange sound. Laughter was not common among their own species. It was used only in rare cultural events and never in serious matters. To laugh at war? To laugh at death? It was unthinkable. "They must believe themselves superior," one officer said. "Why else would they mock a power greater than their own?" Another added, "Or perhaps they do not understand. Perhaps laughter is their way of showing courage." Thalros dismissed the thought. To him, the Empire was supreme. No primitive species could possibly show courage before its fleets. No, it had to be arrogance. He clenched his fists. "We will remind them who rules these stars." Inside the human fleet aboard the Resolute, Captain Aaron Blake leaned over the console, still shaking his head at the absurdity of the situation. The crew around him was calm, though small smiles lingered on their faces. "Do you think they understood us?" Lieutenant Singh asked, curiosity in her eyes. "Probably not," Blake replied. "They don't know why we laughed. They'll think it's something else." The truth was simple. The humans weren't laughing at the Empire itself, but at the situation. To be told to surrender without a fight, without even an introduction, it felt like something out of an old story, not real life. Humanity had come too far, struggled too much to give up because of words. To them, laughter was a way to stay calm. It was how they turned fear into strength. It was how they reminded themselves that no empire, no matter how grand, was beyond challenge. On the crew deck, conversation spread. "Can you believe they actually called themselves the Galactic Empire?" one technician said with a grin. "Sounds like a children's tale," another replied. "They think we'll just kneel?" No chance. Humanity's never been good at kneeling. The laughter was not born of arrogance. It was born of history, of survival. Yet the humans knew the Empire would misunderstand. That misunderstanding would lead to conflict. The Empire's misjudgment back in the Empire fleet, Thalros prepared his report for the Imperial Court. In his message, he described the humans as bold and insolent, a people who dared to mock the greatest power in the galaxy. He warned that such disrespect must be punished swiftly, or it would inspire others to rebel. The court, far away at the galactic core, received the report with cold interest. "Mockery," one counselor murmured. "Such behavior cannot be allowed." "Agreed," said another. "If these creatures laugh at us, others may do the same. We must act with strength." Orders were sent back across the stars. The humans were to be brought to heel, an example to all. The Empire could not allow laughter to echo in defiance of its authority. The human way. On the human side, Captain Blake gathered his officers in the war room. A holographic map displayed the enemy fleet, sleek Imperial warships polished and perfect in their formations. Against them, the human ships looked rough, uneven, almost patched together. "They think we're weak," Blake said. "They look at our ships and see junk. They hear our laughter and think it's arrogance. They don't understand what it really means." Lieutenant Singh leaned forward. "Then let's make them understand." Blake nodded. "But not yet. If we fire first, we'll confirm their fears about us. For now, we hold position. We show them we're not afraid. Let them make the first move." The officers agreed. Humanity was outnumbered, but not outmatched. Their ships carried weapons designed for survival in hostile frontiers. Railguns, kinetic cannons, stealth systems that could mask their presence. They were not polished, but they were deadly. And above all, humans had something the Empire had long forgotten: unpredictability. A clash of perceptions for days. The standoff continued. The Empire watched the humans, waiting for fear. The humans waited for the Empire, calm and patient. Imperial officers whispered among themselves. "Why do they not yield? Why do they not even speak? They only laugh." To the Empire, Laughter was a sign of defiance, a refusal to acknowledge power. It made them restless, angry, and unsettled. But inside the human fleet, the laughter carried a different meaning. It was not rebellion, but resilience. It was a shield against despair. When things were uncertain, humans had always laughed. They laughed in trenches, in storms, even in the cold darkness of space. It was not to insult, but to endure. Yet the Empire could not see the difference. Misunderstanding grew like a shadow between them. The spark of conflict, Admiral Thalros finally lost patience. On the 5th day of silence and laughter, he ordered a warning shot. A beam of energy streaked across the void, bright and blazing, passing just meters from the hull of the Resolute. The humans watched as it lit up the darkness, a silent line of power. The crew of the Resolute did not panic. Instead, nervous chuckles spread through the control deck. Someone muttered, "Guess they're done talking." Blake stood calmly. "Steady, hold your fire. Let them see we're not rattled." The laughter that followed was not loud this time, but quiet and steady like a heartbeat. It filled the ship with calmness. On the Imperial flagship, however, the reaction was the opposite. Officers stared at their admiral in shock. "They laugh again, even when fired upon," one said. "They are fearless," another whispered. Thalros clenched his teeth. "Not fearless, arrogant. They think themselves untouchable. Very well. If they want war, we shall give it to them." 2 worlds apart. And so the misunderstanding deepened. To the Empire, laughter was challenge. To humanity, laughter was survival. Each side saw only what their culture allowed. Each side judged the other wrongly. The Empire believed it faced a reckless species that mocked authority. Humanity believed it faced an empire too blind to understand. The truth was hidden between the two views, but neither side could see it. Soon, words would no longer matter. Soon, laughter would meet fire, and the galaxy would learn what it meant when humans refused to bow. The silence of space stretched across the battlefield, broken only by the slow drift of stars and the steady hum of engines. On one side waited the mighty fleet of the Galactic Empire, polished and disciplined, their warships gleaming with ancient pride. On the other side hovered the human ships, rugged and practical, patched with scars of old journeys, their crews calm but alert. For days, they had stared at one another across the void. For days, the Empire had demanded surrender, and the humans had answered with laughter. Now, after Admiral Thalros' warning shot, the air was heavy with tension. The first exchange was no longer a question of if, it was only a matter of when. The Empire's resolve on the Imperial flagship. Admiral Thalros stood at the center of his command deck. His golden uniform shone under the lights, his eyes fixed on the alien ships ahead. To him, the laughter of humans was like acid, burning, insulting, intolerable. "They defy us still," he said coldly. "Even after a warning shot, they mock us." His officers nodded uneasily. "They do not act as others do," one admitted. "Most would have fled by now." Thalros raised his chin. "Then they will learn what it means to provoke the Empire. No species, no matter how strange, is beyond discipline." He turned to his weapons officer. "Target their lead ship. Disable their engines. Show them the price of arrogance." Orders flowed through the fleet. Dozens of Imperial ships adjusted their formation, cannons humming with power. The Empire was ready to strike. The human comm aboard the Resolute. Captain Aaron Blake watched as his console lit up with signals. The Empire's warships were moving, shifting into attack lines. He could see the glow of their energy cannons ready to unleash destruction. His crew looked to him for direction. Some were tense, their hands tightening over controls. Yet even now, small chuckles rippled through the deck. The humans did not laugh because they dismissed the danger. They laughed because it steadied their nerves. "They're coming," Lieutenant Singh said quietly. Blake gave a slow nod. "Let them. But remember, we fire only if fired upon. Until then, hold steady." The crew obeyed. Their ships might not shine like the Empire's, but each was a fortress of steel and ingenuity. Weapons hidden behind armored panels, stealth systems woven into their hulls, and railguns capable of piercing through shields. They were fewer in number, but they were prepared. The first shot, the Empire fired first. A beam of energy lanced through the darkness, striking the Resolute's shields. Sparks rippled across the surface of the barrier, glowing bright before fading into the void. The ship shook, but it held. On the human bridge, someone muttered, "That tickled." A round of quiet laughter spread, easing the fear that had begun to rise. Blake straightened in his chair. Enough waiting. Return fire. Show them what we carry. The humans moved swiftly. Panels slid open across their ships, revealing railguns lined with magnetic coils. Unlike the Empire's elegant beams, these weapons were brutal and direct, chunks of metal hurled at incredible speed. The first human volley roared through the void. Projectiles streaked across space, invisible until they struck. One Imperial cruiser shuddered violently as its shields flared, then broke. Metal tore across its hull, scattering fragments into the darkness. The Empire had expected resistance, but not this. Their officers stared in shock. "What weapons are these?" one cried. "They are not energy. They are physical." Admiral Thalros's face darkened. The humans had struck harder than he believed possible. The laughter continues as the battle began. Human voices filled the comms with calm chatter, sometimes broken by laughter. It was not the wild laughter of joy, but the steady, brave laughter of soldiers who had faced danger before. "Railgun 2 is hot, huh? Let's see if their shield's like this. They're turning on us, good. Saves me the trouble of aiming." Even as explosions rocked their ships, the humans laughed. To Imperial ears, the sound carried across the comms like thunder, unsettling and strange. On the Empire's flagship, officers whispered nervously. "They laugh while they fight. Who does this? What kind of beings are they?" Thalros growled. "They are reckless. Do not mistake madness for strength. Press the attack!" But even he could not ignore the unease creeping into his heart. Chaos in the void. The first exchange erupted into full battle. Imperial warships fired beams of energy, slicing through the void in brilliant lines. Human ships answered with volleys of railgun fire, tearing through shields and armor alike. The Empire's ships moved in perfect formation, drilled by centuries of discipline. But the humans fought differently. Their maneuvers were unpredictable, almost chaotic. One ship feigned retreat, then spun suddenly to unleash a devastating volley. Another played dead, drifting quietly until it struck from behind. The Empire's officers struggled to follow. "Their tactics make no sense," one cried. "They move without order." But to humans, it was not disorder. It was creativity. It was the art of improvisation, the skill of turning chaos into advantage. Doubt among the Empire, as the battle raged, more Imperial ships began to falter. Shields cracked under the relentless railgun strikes. Perfect formations broke apart as captains scrambled to defend themselves. Thalros watched with fury as one of his cruisers exploded in a bloom of fire. His jaw tightened. He had believed the humans to be primitive, their ships crude, yet here they were, fighting on equal ground with the Empire's finest. "How can this be?" he muttered. His second-in-command spoke carefully. "Admiral, perhaps their laughter is not arrogance. Perhaps it is confidence." "They knew we would attack and they were ready." Thalros glared. He did not want to admit it, but deep inside he felt the first stirrings of fear. Humanity's message back on the Resolute. Captain Blake knew they could not win by firepower alone. The Empire's numbers were too great. But he did not want victory. He wanted to send a message. "Transmit this across open channels," he ordered. The crew complied, and soon the sound of human laughter echoed once again across the battlefield, louder than before. Alongside it came Blake's steady voice. "We are not afraid of you. We do not kneel. If you want us, come and take us, but know this, humanity does not break." The words carried across both fleets. To the humans, they were a promise. To the Empire, they were a challenge. The end of the first exchange after hours of fighting. Neither side had gained full victory. Both had suffered damage. Both had learned something new. The Empire had discovered that humans could not be intimidated, that their laughter was not weakness but strength. The humans had discovered the Empire's pride, its refusal to accept anything less than obedience. As the fleets pulled back to regroup, the stars were silent once more. But the silence was different now. It was heavy, charged, filled with the knowledge that this was only the beginning. The Empire believed the humans had insulted them. The humans believed the Empire had threatened them unjustly, and so the misunderstanding grew deeper. The first exchange had ended, but war was now inevitable. And still the sound of human laughter lingered in the minds of the Empire, haunting them more than any weapon. The emptiness of space had returned after the first clash, but the tension between the two fleets was far from over. Imperial warships drifted in formation, their hulls scarred by the sudden and unexpected human attacks. Officers whispered nervously as damage reports scrolled across their consoles. This was not the swift surrender they had expected. Admiral Thalros stood on the bridge of his flagship, his golden uniform crisp, but his eyes darkened with worry. He had seen fleets crumble before, but never against a species he considered primitive. The humans had survived, adapted, and retaliated with precision. Worst of all, they had laughed through it all. "They are fearless," one officer admitted, voice low. "Their ships are inferior, yet they fight as if we were equals." Thalros's jaw clenched. "Not equals, reckless. They have no respect for the Empire. That is their weakness. And yet it is not enough. I cannot ignore it." He walked to the large display in the center of the bridge. The human fleet moved with a strange rhythm, splitting into smaller groups, weaving around the damaged Imperial ships and striking with precise timing. Every attempt to trap them failed. Every formation the Empire had perfected over centuries seemed inadequate. Humanity's confidence on the human side. Captain Aaron Blake leaned over the command console, studying the movements of the Imperial fleet. His officers moved efficiently, their hands steady even as explosions shook the Resolute from impacts across nearby ships. "They're regrouping," Lieutenant Singh said, pointing at the display. "They're trying to reorganize their attack," Blake nodded. "Good, let them. The more predictable they are, the easier it is for us to defend. Remember, they do not understand our methods. They cannot anticipate our moves." Human laughter echoed quietly through the ship's comm systems. Not wild, not careless, but a steady, confident sound. It was a shield, a reminder to themselves that fear was not the only choice. "It's strange," one technician said, smiling despite the tension. "We're outnumbered, outgunned, and yet I don't feel afraid." "That's because we've survived worse," Blake said simply. "We fight differently, we adapt. That's our strength." Indeed, that strength was beginning to show. The humans' irregular tactics kept the Empire off balance. One cruiser would pretend to flee, drawing in a pursuing Imperial ship, only for two human vessels to flank and disable it. Another would remain motionless in space, appearing inactive, while a hidden railgun fired from an unexpected angle. Each movement was precise and yet unpredictable, leaving the Empire uncertain at every turn. The Empire's growing fear back on the Imperial flagship, Thalros felt a rising tension that he could not shake. The human laughter, once thought to be arrogance, now seemed deliberate, confident, and unshakable. "They do not fear us," he said to his second-in-command, voice tight. "Do you understand no fear? Not of death, not of destruction? Nothing," the officer nodded slowly. "It is unsettling. Every time we strike, they respond with force and laughter. Their courage unnerves the crew." Thalros clenched his fists. The Empire was powerful, yes, but these humans, these strange, unrefined beings, had shown something the Empire had almost forgotten: adaptability. They were not machines of war, not entirely predictable patterns of calculation. They were living, thinking, improvising, and the Empire's calculated strategies were failing. "I've never seen an enemy like this," he muttered. "Not even the Zarathi, not even the Varel. They all understood fear or chaos. These humans understand neither in the way we do. It is alien." The officers nodded in agreement, though their faces were pale. Fear had begun to creep into the hearts of those who had been trained to feel none. Humanity exploits. Chaos. Captain Blake watched the Imperial fleet struggle to maintain formation. It was almost comical if the stakes were not so high. Imperial ships designed for coordinated attacks faltered as human tactics disrupted their lines. One group of human vessels drew multiple Imperial cruisers into a trap. When the humans struck, the cruisers' shields overloaded and one exploded in a bloom of fire. The Resolute fired its railguns again, striking the final ship of the pursuing group. The remaining Imperial vessels hesitated, unsure how to proceed. Every volley from humans was followed by the same steady, confident laughter. "This is working," Lieutenant Singh said, her eyes bright. "They're losing control. They can't predict us." Blake nodded. "Yes, that's the point. Let them learn that power alone does not guarantee victory. Let them learn that courage, strategy, and adaptability matter too." Human ships moved as if they were part of a single organism. One ship drew fire, another flanked, and a third struck from a hidden angle. Every human officer and crew member moved with purpose, their laughter providing morale, their confidence radiating to every corner of the fleet. Imperial panic. The Empire fleet, meanwhile, was beginning to fracture. Imperial captains tried to maintain discipline, but the human unpredictability wore them down. Every strategy they employed was countered by an unexpected human maneuver. Every order was challenged by improvisation. "They're everywhere," one officer shouted. "They know our moves before we make them." "They are more than numbers," another admitted, voice trembling. "They adapt faster than we can calculate." Their laughter, "It unnerves us," Thalros gritted his teeth. "No, it cannot be. We are the Empire! No species has ever stood against us like this." But even he could feel the truth creeping into his mind. The humans were teaching the Empire something it had never truly learned. Fear was not always obedience, and courage could take many forms. The turning points, and the battle continued. Human ships began to gain subtle advantages. Damaged Imperial vessels were removed from formation, while human losses remained minimal. Every strike by humans was deliberate, calculated yet unpredictable. The Empire realized that sheer numbers and firepower were not enough. A council of Imperial admirals gathered on the flagship. "We cannot win like this," one said, voice low. "Their methods. They adapt, they improvise. Every attack we make is countered." Thalros slammed a fist on the table. "Do you think I would let these humans humiliate the Empire?" "No, Admiral," another replied, "but perhaps we should reconsider our approach. They are not ordinary opponents. Their courage, their laughter. It is changing the battlefield." Thalros stared at the stars. For the first time, doubt gnawed at his certainty. The humans had survived the first exchange, had struck back, and had laughed the Empire's fear into reality. "They do not fear death," Thalros muttered. "They do not fear us. They do not even respect us, and yet they fight better than anyone I have seen in centuries." Humanity's triumph of spirit on the resolute. Blake felt no triumph, only cautious optimism. Humanity had shown its strength, but the battle was far from over. "We've taught them something," he said softly to his officers. "They now know that humans are not afraid. They feel our spirit, our courage. That alone is enough to make them hesitate." Litnir Singh smiled. "And the laughter?" Blake chuckled. "The laughter reminds us who we are. We face impossible odds, and we still stand. We fight because we must, and we laugh because fear will not rule us." The crew nodded, understanding the unspoken truth. Laughter was not weakness. It was defiance. It was courage. It was the essence of humanity shining through the darkness of space. A lesson for the Empire. By the end of the day, the Empire had lost more ships than expected. Its pride was wounded, its confidence shaken. Officers whispered to one another, wondering if they had underestimated the humans. Admiral Thalros paced his bridge, restless. For centuries, no species had challenged the Empire so directly. For centuries, no one had faced them with such audacity. The humans had done more than fight. They had forced the Empire to question its own assumptions, its own sense of invincibility. "They laugh at us," Thalros muttered, voice low and grim. "They are fearless, and that makes them stronger than we expected." A silence fell over the bridge. Even the most disciplined officers could not hide their unease. The Empire had faced many enemies, but none like these humans. None who laughed in the face of death. None who refused to bow. The aftermath as both fleets drifted to regroup. The humans maintained their calm. The Empire, however, was shaken. What had begun as a simple demonstration of power had become a lesson in fear, humility, and the unpredictability of life. The humans had survived. They had fought. They had laughed. And in doing so, they had taught the Empire something far more dangerous than weapons. They had shown that courage, creativity, and spirit could rival even the greatest fleets in the galaxy. For the Empire, the battle was not lost, but pride had been wounded. And pride, Thalros knew, could be as dangerous as any human weapon. The galaxy was quiet after the long engagement, but the echoes of battle lingered across the stars. Imperial fleets, battered and bruised, had retreated to their staging areas to repair, regroup, and report. Humanity's ships floated in the void, their hulls scratched and scorched but intact. No one had surrendered. No one had fled. And above all, human laughter still carried across comms, soft but resolute. For centuries, the Galactic Empire had ruled with unquestioned authority. But now something new had entered the galaxy's history, humans who did not fear it. The Empire Reflex Admiral Thalros stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the dark expanse where the human fleet had been. Reports from his sub-commanders filled the room, each detailing damage and losses. But the real lesson was not written in numbers, it was written in behavior. They did not fear us, he murmured, almost to himself. They laughed at death, at our threats, at our attacks. And they survived. His officers were silent, unsure what to say. Many had served the Empire for decades, fighting enemies who knew instinctively to respect the Empire's might. And now, for the first time, no respect was given. Only courage. Only laughter. Admiral, one officer finally spoke, voice low, our calculations, they are not machines. They adapt faster than we can anticipate. Our fleets cannot predict their movements. Thalros's jaw tightened. He could feel the first seeds of doubt. The humans had survived the first exchanges. They had struck back with ingenuity. They had laughed while doing it. And for the first time, he realized the Empire's pride was vulnerable. Not from weapons, but from spirit. Humanity's perspective aboard the Resolute. Captain Aaron Blake watched his crew quietly repair the minor damages sustained in battle. There was no celebration, only focus. Humans were proud but careful. They had not won. The Empire still had numbers, still had firepower, still had ambition, but they had learned something far greater. The humans would not bow. Do you think they understand us now? Lieutenant Singh asked, watching engineers recalibrate railgun systems. Blake shook his head. No, they won't understand until they face it themselves. Our laughter. It's not arrogance. It's courage. It's the refusal to be afraid. They may never grasp that, and that's fine. They will still respect it. The crew around them nodded quietly. Their laughter, sometimes soft, sometimes shared in small smiles, had become a signal of unity, of strength, of humanity's unique spirit. Across the fleet, morale was high. They had faced the Empire and survived. That alone was a story worth remembering. The Empire's warning across the stars. Word of the human fleet spread. Imperial ships that had engaged them returned to their sectors, and whispers spread among officers and councils. Humans laugh at war. At the galactic core, the Council of the Empire received the reports with unease. The humans had survived despite being outnumbered. Their tactics were unusual, and worst of all, they had not shown fear. Councilors debated endlessly. We cannot underestimate them, one said. They are clever, unpredictable, and courageous. Another argued, but we are the Empire. None should withstand us. Yet even the most confident officers felt the unease. For centuries, no species had stood against the Empire with laughter, defiance, and survival combined. Humans had done more than fight. They had shown the galaxy that courage could be louder than fear. Humanity's message, Captain Blake knew the humans had achieved more than survival. They had sent a message to the Empire and to the galaxy. Humans were not to be underestimated. Prepare a broadcast, Blake ordered. Not threats, not insults, just the truth. Lieutenant Singh raised an eyebrow. The truth? Yes, we don't need to intimidate. We survived, we fought, and we are still here. Let them hear it. A few moments later, the message echoed across the regions near the battle. Human ships broadcast their simple statement across channels accompanied by quiet laughter. We are humans. We do not fear. We do not kneel. We will survive and fight, and we will always laugh even when faced with the greatest dangers. Across the Empire's fleets, the message caused silence. Officers replayed the words again and again. Some felt frustration. Some felt doubt. But all felt a spark of something they could not define. Curiosity, fear, and respect rolled into one. The legend begins. Stories of the battle traveled faster than any fleet. Pilots, engineers, and officers who had faced the humans carried the tale to others. The laughing humans, they called them. They do not fear the Empire. They fight with courage and joy. They survive against impossible odds. In colonies far from the battlefield, young cadets listened to the stories with wide eyes. Across the galaxy, the phrase spread. Humans laughed at the Empire. And wherever it was told, it inspired a mix of astonishment, admiration, and unease. The humans themselves did not claim glory. They had not sought war. They had sought survival and exploration. But the Empire had challenged them, and they had met the challenge in a way the galaxy could not ignore. Humanity's spirit on the Resolute. Blake reflected on the battle. We haven't conquered them, he said quietly. We haven't destroyed their fleet. But we've shown them something more important. Courage, defiance, ingenuity, and spirit. These are our weapons and they last longer than shields or beams. Lieutenant Singh smiled. And the laughter? Blake nodded. The laughter reminds us that fear does not rule us. That even in danger we remain human. It's our signal to ourselves and to the galaxy that we will not bow. That's why it matters more than any weapon we fired. Across the fleet, humans laughed softly, repaired their ships, and readied themselves for the future. They knew the Empire might return. They knew other civilizations would come, curious, fearful, or hostile. But humanity's spirit had been proven, and that spirit, carried with laughter and courage, would guide them forward. The Empire's reflection, Admiral Thalros, sat in his private chambers, staring at reports from the battle. The humans had survived against impossible odds, adapted faster than any predicted, and refused to surrender. Worst of all, they had done it with laughter. For the first time, he realized that the Empire's strength was not absolute. Technology and numbers could only carry so far. Spirit, creativity, and courage, things he had long dismissed as primitive, could level even the mightiest fleet. They are dangerous, he whispered, not because of weapons, but because of their spirit, their laughter. It unsettles the mind. It is a force we cannot measure. The Council would continue to plan, fleets would continue to move, and battles might happen again. But the legend of humanity had begun, a species whose courage, adaptability, and laughter could challenge even the greatest empire in the galaxy. A new chapter, as the human fleet moved beyond the battle zone. Captain Blake looked at the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of unknowns, dangers, and opportunities. Yet humanity had proven something vital. They would meet the universe with courage, creativity, and laughter. The Empire would remember this. Other species would remember this. And history itself would mark the moment when humans first laughed at the most powerful fleet the galaxy had ever known. And survived. That laughter, carried across space, became a symbol. A symbol of courage, hope, and defiance. A symbol that humanity would always hold on to, no matter how great the challenge. And thus began the rise of humans in the galaxy, not through conquest alone, but through spirit, laughter, and the unbreakable will to endure. The colony of New Dawn had always been a symbol of human hope. It was not Earth's largest or richest settlement, but it was one of the brightest. Built on the surface of a green planet orbiting a golden star, the colony grew steadily for over a century. Families lived in shining cities surrounded by rivers, fields, and forests. Children ran through wide gardens and farmers harvested crops under clear skies. To the people of Earth, New Dawn was proof that humanity could spread among the stars not with war, but with peace and growth. Every week, voices and images from New Dawn reached Earth through the vast network of subspace relays. News programs showed scientists working on new energy systems, engineers constructing new spaceports, and artists creating music in grand halls. People from Earth often said, "If you want to see humanity's future, look at New Dawn." Then one ordinary day, the voices went silent. At first, it seemed like nothing serious. Communications sometimes failed because of solar storms or damaged relays. Earth's Terran Communications Authority received no signals for 3 hours, then 6. Engineers checked their systems. They found nothing wrong. After 12 hours, concern spread through the council chambers. By the 24th hour, fear began to grow. The High Council ordered a scout vessel, the Eclipse, to travel to New Dawn. Its mission was simple: reconnect with the colony, fix whatever problem had occurred, and bring reassurance back to Earth. On board the Eclipse were 20 crew members, pilots, engineers, and 1 historian. Their leader, Captain Elias Renner, was a quiet man known for patience and careful judgment. As the Eclipse moved through the black void of space, the crew tried to comfort themselves. Some joked that it was probably just a broken antenna. Others said New Dawn's relay might have been struck by a meteor. Captain Renner listened but did not smile. His instincts told him something was different this time. Days passed before they reached the edge of the New Dawn system. Normally, the system was alive with signals: trade routes, navigation beacons, orbital chatter from satellites. This time there was only silence. The navigator checked his screens 3 times, then whispered, "Captain, there is nothing here." The crew grew uneasy. They passed the orbit of the outer gas giant, its storm swirling in silence. They crossed the frozen belt of asteroids where miners usually worked. No ships moved. No signals came. The silence pressed down on them like a heavy weight. Finally, the eclipse approached new dawn itself. Everyone rushed to the viewing decks, eager and fearful. The moment the planet filled their screens, a wave of shock swept through the crew. The green world they remembered was gone. The forests were burned to black scars. The oceans shimmered with strange colors, poisoned by something unnatural. Cities that once sparkled with light lay in ruins. Their towers collapsed, their streets nothing but ash. No ships orbited the planet. No stations shone with power. It looked as if life itself had been erased. "Scan for survivors," Captain Renner ordered. Though his voice shook, the scanners worked. They searched the land, the sea, and the sky. The results came back empty. Not a single life sign registered. Millions of people had lived here. Now there was no one. One of the young engineers, barely 20 years old, buried his face in his hands. "They're all gone," he whispered. Another crew member, the historian, stood frozen, unable to speak. Renner forced himself to stay calm. "Check for traces. Weapons fire, radiation, anything." Hours passed as the crew studied the ruins. Slowly, the truth became clear. New Dawn had not fallen to accident or disaster. The patterns of destruction were too precise. Cities had been targeted from orbit. Oceans had been poisoned deliberately. Energy readings revealed the use of alien plasma weapons far beyond human design. The historian finally spoke, his voice hollow. This was not nature. This was not chance. Someone wanted this world dead. The name of the attackers appeared on the records, the Xylar Dominion. For centuries, the Xylar had ruled parts of the galaxy with cold arrogance. They saw themselves as masters of the stars, while younger races were nothing but pests. Most civilizations feared them. They crushed resistance without mercy. Until now, humans had remained outside their attention. It was clear that had changed. Captain Renner stared at the ruined planet for a long time. His hands clenched into fists. The crew around him looked broken, but Renner's eyes were filled with something else. Determination. "We must return to Earth," he said. "They need to know." The journey back felt longer than the trip out. No one on the eclipse spoke much. The crew members stayed at their stations, each lost in thought. Some wept quietly. Others stared into the void. Captain Renner, though filled with grief, began to think of the future. He knew what this meant. Humanity had been attacked not by nature or chance, but by an empire that thought humans could be erased like insects. When the eclipse finally reached Earth, it carried no survivors, no good news, no hope. It carried only evidence, images of a burned planet, recordings of alien energy signatures, and silence that spoke louder than words. The Terran High Council gathered in a vast chamber in Geneva. Leaders from across human colonies and stations joined by hologram. The images of New Dawn played across the chamber walls. Every leader watched in silence as forests burned, oceans glowed with poison, and cities crumbled into dust. Some leaders cried openly. Others stared in cold fury. When the recordings ended, silence filled the chamber again. It was the same silence that had fallen on New Dawn, now echoed across Earth. Finally, the High Chancellor spoke. "New Dawn is gone. Our people are gone." This was no accident. This was no disaster. This was murder. The chamber trembled with anger. Voices rose, demanding justice, demanding vengeance, demanding action. For centuries, humanity had avoided wars across the stars. They had focused on growth, on peace, on spreading carefully. But now every heart burned with the same thought. If we do nothing, more colonies will fall. If we stay silent, more voices will be erased. Captain Renner stood before the council and gave his report. His voice was steady, though his heart carried the weight of all he had seen. He ended with a single sentence. "If we do not act, New Dawn will not be the last." The council members looked at one another. They all knew the truth. Humanity had been tested, and now humanity would answer. The silence of New Dawn would not be forgotten. It would echo across every ship, every colony, every heart. Humanity's grief was deep, but deeper still was its resolve. For New Dawn, Earth would rise.